We're going to open the afternoon sessions by discussing the most important part of any plan, getting everybody on the same sheet of music. Without a common goal and agreement on how to get there, you're going nowhere. A common challenge is aligning technology investments with marketing strategies. And here to discuss how to overcome this are our panelists today. Please welcome Joe Milano, SVP of Digital at Tapestry, Kimberly Wallengren, Vice President of Marketing, North America at Coach, and Kevin Ertell, founder and CEO of Mistere Advisory.
We're excited to talk to you about a topic that's near and dear to my heart for sure. We'll do a little intro first. So I'm founder and CEO of Mistere Advisory. It's a consultancy that's focused on helping retailers execute more effectively and solution partners be more successful with retailers. But I've been a retailer before that for the previous 30 years, most recently at Nike, also at Sur La Table, Borders, Tower Records. I've led the P&L in the both digital and physical side, and also led functions like marketing and operations and technology. So harmony between all those functions is definitely near and dear to my heart. But I want to introduce our panelists and have them tell you about themselves. Also, let me just tell you, first of all, just so maybe not everybody knows, but Tapestry is a family of brands that includes Coach. So Joe and Kimberly do work together, and we'll talk a lot about that.
Far away.
I know. Kimberly, a little intro about yourself.
Hi everybody. Kimberly Wallengren. I'm actually celebrating my second year at Coach this week, so I'm thrilled to be here.
Happy anniversary.
Yay! So my background, I'm a classically trained brand marketer. I've been fortunate enough to work for some pretty incredible brands. I've worked for New Balance, Adidas, and American Eagle on their AE77 brand. And yeah, I've been working in marketing, really trying to build brands, connect with new audiences, and and on the side, my side hustle is I own a coffee roasting business in Bantam, Connecticut, so come on and visit. Come up to Connecticut.
Nice.
Yeah, so Joe Milano, I'm actually coming up on 5 years, and as Kevin mentioned, Tapestry is a house of brands, so I've been with the company, I would say almost 5. The first 3, I was actually with one of our other brands, Kate Spade. We also have Kate Spade and Stuart Weitzman. And then about 2 years ago, I moved over to the center. My career, big and small, have pretty much led or developed almost every function outside of creative. I'll say it's probably the weakest part of my game. But you've heard of Saks Fifth Avenue, Shopbop, Amazon, amongst others.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for joining us. And let's really get into this, because this is an important topic. How do functions get along together to be successful for the business? And you guys have a great story. So I'd love to just kind of ask you, how do you foster a culture of collaboration between your functions to ensure both teams are working together towards the same objectives?
Yeah, I think it starts with, customer centricity is at the foundation of everything that we do at Tapestry, and especially on the Coach side, we are consumer obsessed. So it really starts with getting to know who that customer is, the insights, the data, knowing what their behaviors are. And then from that, from a brand strategy side, which my team leads for Coach and the marketing side, is, what is our North Star? Like, where are we going to go with this? So we know the consumer, we know where we need to go, making it very clear, very simple. And we actually at Coach have, from a marketing side and a business side, we have 3 very simple KPIs. We have purchase intent, we have acquisition of new customer, and we have demand growth. So it's very simple, and everything that we do is kind of filtered through the customer and filtered through those KPIs, and then we build briefs and problems and challenges, and we hand them over to Joe's team to help us solve them.
Yeah, I think, and listen, I'm going to talk to some of the work that we do together, but this applies to whether we're working with Kate or working with Stuart as well. I think the important thing is, like you said, the brand is really kind of setting that strategy, and then where my team and others step in is, how do we support that and think about what types of technologies or platforms or tactics that are really going to best support the KPIs that we're trying to move. And I reference KPIs because I think one of the things that gets lost sometimes is you have strategy turned over and let's go activate it. Well, how do you know if that's working or not? And so what we do is we set a robust, what I'll call a learning agenda, which I'm sure people have heard before, but really what it's about is making sure that we have the right metrics at hand, depending on the platform or tech that we're actually going to activate against the right pillar of strategy that the brand is looking to move. So once we've done that, I think we have a really nice foundation set in terms of understanding, like, are we achieving success? Are we moving the needle? And how are we applying that to go forward?
Yeah. And I think some of those things can be big and small, right? I think that's the beauty of like our test and learn philosophy at Coach and at Tapestry is like, of course, we're all looking for the $50 million, $100 million idea and solution, but sometimes those solutions won't happen necessarily in period. So, we're constantly testing and evolving together. And I think, looking at AI in particular, AI in creative, we actually are piloting something coming up, I think, with Meta, where we're looking at not how AI can make creative, but how can we use AI to evaluate the performance of the creative so that then we can make our creative campaigns stronger and more resonant with our consumer in the future. So it's a constant, you might not see the benefit of that in period, but you're going to see the benefit of that down the road. Yeah, because those KPIs aren't always about in-period sales or in-period revenue. It's like, how do you measure these things so you can set them up for success in the future? Because a lot of the ideas we have that might start small, they're $1 million or $5 million ideas, but they can grow to be pretty significant. And you can lose those if you don't have the right ancillary KPIs to support that investment thesis.
Cool. So a lot of times you can get agreement on a broad shared goal, even KPI targets, and then the disagreement and the conflict comes in the tactics and sort of the details. So can you talk a little bit about where you guys have sort of addressed some of that and how you kind of work your way through that?
Yeah, I'll start.
You can start, yeah.
Listen, I could give you a bunch of good examples about all the things that work really, really well, but that's like the easy part.
Give us the dirt, man.
Yeah, I think the important thing is like when things are, we'll get to that, but I think the important thing is like not everything always does go super well, right? We have situations where everything kind of breaks down, if you will, and we're left picking up the pieces. Listen, we had one probably about 12, 18 months ago that was, I'd say, between our teams kind of sitting here as well as some partner teams too. And it was a measurement. It was a pretty big measurement thing that we were looking at from a marketing perspective as we thought about channel of acquisition, channel investment philosophy. And we didn't follow those principles. We kind of crowdsourced it, we all felt good, we all kind of rushed to the end, and everybody kind of held hands, right? Like, so we had a really, really positive attitude and really supportive group. But when the results started pouring in, it really wasn't kind of telling us the story they were going after. And so we were kind of left picking up the pieces, which takes me to the second part, which is, okay, what did we learn from that? Right? And that's the important thing. What we took away was we needed to be smarter up front, and we needed to follow the process that we had, right? And so that process is really about, okay, what is the strategy? What is the KPI? How are we affecting that KPI? What does the plan look like? Should we measure it and we achieve success? What is that going to look like? And conversely, if success isn't achieved, what is that going to look like? And we've got to hold hands on that, right? Because in the day, you're going to have some disagreements that are going to be out there. But the important thing is to really disagree and commit, right? Yeah. Like let's outline what the risks are and all align on what those risks could be. But then we all have to get behind driving that success.
And I think there also can be an alignment with like us and our leadership team, but like the folks that are really working on it and like have passion about it. I think those are the moments that you really have to be clear with that, where we're trying to go and what we're trying to do, and also assume best intent. I think that's like, no one is trying to like mess it all up.
Nobody shows up to work every day.
And so I think like, when we've had these situations, it's getting everyone in the room. It's like making sure like, talking through, listening to both groups, kind of like, where are you coming from a tech side? Where are we coming from a strategy side? Like, what is not lining up here? And like making sure that everyone's heard and it's shared. And then to Joe's point, taking an action, a direction, committing to it and going again. And just like, it is a cycle, like it's pick yourself up and like keep going. And I think that that's something that like we culturally have been able to achieve.
I would just add on, I think the other thing that we do a really good job of between our teams, and I think this is just Tapestry, is that I think we do a really good job kind of respecting like where the expertise, where the talent is, right? We can all aspire to be great at everything, but like we all want to invest our time where we can get the max payback. So I think what we've done is we said, okay, well, who's the expert here? Like, who's best positioned to answer this question or weigh in on it? And then really kind of letting that person or group run with it. So we're meeting at the place where we each bring our best selves to the table.
Yep, like it. So we talked about this in the pre-call a little bit. You guys get along really well, and you have a great personality mesh, which is amazing, right? But what are there in sort of structural elements or cultural elements maybe that exist that help sort of keep people together even if personally they don't get along as well?
You go first, then.
Yeah. That's fair. The nice thing is that at Tapestry, I think we have a good, and I think you probably agree, so we have a good foundation of like really respecting data and insights, right? Like putting the customer at the center, putting data at the center, putting insights at the center, and letting that drive the conversation. I'm not going to say we're always perfect at it, right? Like emotion is always at play, right? No doubt, especially when you're passionate about something. But I think what we do a good job is we bring it back to the table and say, okay, what does the data tell us? Like, what are we learning from this to help inform the decision? Because ultimately, everybody wants to drive toward that successful outcome. But you need something that's going to point to, are you driving that successful outcome? That's where the data and the insights come in from a customer perspective.
And I think it's really important, applying that rigor actually allows us to take the emotion out of it. Like, when you have clarity on like the criteria, the rigor, again, the KPI is knowing where we're going. If you come to a conclusion that maybe not your what your personal conclusion was, that you can actually take the emotion out of it, which I think is really nice. And I've never worked for a company that's more data driven. It really blows my mind actually how much detail we have. And I come from again, a classic marketer. I want to build a brand. I want to create emotion. I want to connect with you. But it really is helpful just to reinforce the direction that we're going with the data, the hunches that I have. His team and our analytics team, can either validate it or not, and then I have to get over it and move on, or we can celebrate it and we can have some fun with the consumer. So I think that's really important. The other thing that what I've experienced is I think we all have a hunger for innovation. There's a really clear data principle and value to the company, and there's a really clear hunger for innovation, being first, doing next, getting in front. And I think that's what this team has allowed us to do from a media side, from SEM side, from everything is how do we stay ahead? How do we work with our partners and our platforms to make sure that we're getting access to the alphas, we're testing things out, we're, I would say testing and learning and playing around with this space that might not necessarily be a space that we should be in. We just tested something with Meta that's called Moments Maker, and it's usually used for, it's elevating all of their video platforms, all of their video products. And it's usually used in the entertainment business, right? For blockbuster videos. This is how they blockbuster films, they leverage this product and they get broad reach and can kind of build equity and can also measure it. We decided, hey, let's take a look at that for us. We're trying to build equity within our consumer. Let's give that a try. And it actually, I think it decreased our cost by 91%, something really incredible. So it's just that hunger for next and that hunger for innovation that I think is really a universally felt feeling.
Yeah, and that's one that's worked, but we also have examples of ones that don't work.
Oh,
but
yeah,
again,
plenty.
but that's that push, is that we've got to be trying 3, 7, 10 ideas, but focused, right? We can't do everything, right? Of course, everything could drive value, but we want to focus in on what are the ones we think will drive outsized value, and then invest in that with our partners and platforms to co-develop that sometimes. And sometimes those things work really well, and you just mentioned Moment Maker, and we have other examples, but sometimes they don't, and we're actually, that isn't as a big of an idea as we thought it was.
When you talked about the decide and commit earlier, can you go into a little bit more about how you resolve that? So you guys are having a discussion, people disagree, eventually you get to that moment where you go, okay, we got to decide and commit. How does that sort of happen?
We get everybody in a room, right? At the end of the day, it's, you got to pull people together. It's really, really easy to become disparate and disconnected if it's just point-to-point communication, if you will. But we pull everybody in and say, okay, let's just lay it on the table. And that's, again, what we talk about data, we talk about KPIs, we talk about strategies. At the end of the day, it's just people working together trying to solve problems, right? And so somebody might disagree with something, and that's great. We want counterpoints of view, right? You want to have that person that's going to say, no, here's why I think that's wrong, and they're going to lay that out, and they're going to lay those risks out. But then we're going to make a decision on that. And yes, we've agreed and we've acknowledged that something may not go as planned, but we're all going to own the win and the loss together from that point forward.
I think it also goes back to if we all know the North Star and we all know about the consumer, like there's a shared understanding of consumer and what the consumer would want. And like that, for me and my team, like that's what I always go back to. Like, is this the best consumer experience? Like, what do we anticipate that they're gonna do? Like, is this gonna make their lives better? Is this gonna make them love our brand more? Like, it goes back to like, there's always that consumer filter that is like absolutely critical in the success of this. And so again, with data and with, you know, this knowing the consumer and knowing that North Star, like that you triangulate that, and like we don't often have these harder conversations because it's very clear in the upfront.
Yeah, we don't always agree out of the gate,
Oh, yeah,
right?
no.
Sure.
But we get to a place where there's shared understanding of what we're trying to achieve, and then we go after it together.
Yep, makes sense. I like that. Yeah. All right, so that leads into this question. So you got a great scenario. You guys get along great. We love it. The culture's great, data-driven. Let's go hypothetical. Imagine that you're dropped into a new company that didn't have the great relationships, didn't have the data-driven culture to help people aligned. What's the one thing each of you would do first to help get the culture to where you think it needs to be?
You can go first.
So it's just one thing.
Let's start with one. If
So
you want to
One thing can have
we could
5
do 2,
parts.
3.
What is that record? Not to be a record. What is it called?
Not to be a broken record.
Not to be a broken record? Not to be a broken record, but like everyone needs to understand who the consumer is. Like that is like the first thing. And I think, and also know the business strategy, right? So like consumer, business strategy, like they go hand in hand. And then I really think it is just like listening and asking questions and having empathy, and like on the softer side of it, it's like truly believe that like there's the best intent in everybody. So I really think like if things are broken and if things are a mess, they're not a mess for any malice. They're a mess because maybe everyone doesn't know what they're trying to strive for and like where they're trying to go. Like that's where confusion happens and that's where the breakdown happens. So if you can kind of, again, set it up with who's the consumer, what's the business strategy, what's our North Star, let's just sit and listen to each other and ask each other questions and have empathy for each other and intent. I'm probably covering a lot here, sorry, Joe, but like have that intent. Like I think it's like, it's not the one thing, but it's like kind of the whole pie.
So it's, I'm dropped into this hypothetical organization and I can do one thing.
He's
thing?
actually going to
You can't
answer
only
the
do
question.
What's the first thing I can do?
Yeah, do the first thing. If you want to do 2, 3,
So
we've got time.
I did
Probably
5 or
2 or
6.
3.
Probably
right?
quit.
We still have 3 minutes.
Quit might be the first thing, right? Like leave the organization as fast as possible. But if that's
But
taken
you
off
have
the
to
table,
fix it. It's the one thing to fix it.
okay, I've got to fix it. All right, I actually have to clean up the mess. Yeah. No, you said a lot. I think, like, listen, we talked about it a little bit earlier. You know, I don't think anybody. Listen, I don't think most people show up looking to do a poor job or to be in conflict. I think most people show up want to be their best selves. They want to have a positive impact. They want to be recognized for the work they've done. So first thing I want to do is just really understand the situation, right? You mentioned the word empathy. I think empathy is a big word, and I think a lot of people use it. But I think the important thing is like really experiencing it, right? Like, what is somebody else going through, trying to understand what they're trying to accomplish, and then really kind of build off of that. Like, how do you support their goals and objectives in a way that is great for them, great for the organization, great for you?
Mm-hmm. That's such a great point, because like everyone, you want to have a job that's fulfilling, right? Like job fulfillment and like having a value to a company is super important. If you don't feel that, then like that's going to be a problem. So I love where you're going with that.
Yeah, and I think secondly is like, you know, then of course understanding, you talked about the customer, right? Then the customer at the center, that's going to kind of drive your agenda overall. But then getting into the specifics and like how you're actually going to move the needle together. Again, it sounds really simple, like, oh yeah, you can just go do this. But the practical part is hard because you've got to commit a lot of time that might not necessarily be driving actual tactical work.
Yep.
Right, but that's the harder part, is getting people on board. Because once you get people aligned and really excited about the future, that's the easy part. Just do the work together then.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, one thing that I've always liked to do is go in and sort of look and say, what's our big mission goal? Mm-hmm. And what is the role we play? I like to bring cross-functional people together to do that. Let's get in the room together, talk about what's the mission really. Like, let's get after that and then and break that down. How does each person play a role in driving that mission? Mm-hmm. And as you keep breaking it down, it's a nice way for people to start to understand, oh, I see the role I play. I see how my role plays with your role and how we're able to drive this thing together, and you sort of set the stage for collaboration that way.
Yeah, and I think some of the secret sauce, I'll speak for Coach in particular, like our goal is to make connections with Gen Z, right? So it's like the next Gen Z. So like, I feel like the secret sauce is like making sure that you have Gen Z in the room to have those conversations. Like making sure, again, that you're bringing that customer into those strategic conversations so that like, we are all together in this, and like the insights that you get from those folks or your community managers or your sales teams in the stores is like invaluable. So I think that that's another important kind of element. It's not just like the leadership team that needs to like solve this. It's like everybody needs to be involved.
Top to bottom, and having that empty chair in the room to represent the customer.
Love it.
Oh my gosh.
Guys, we have reached that moment where it's time for the commerce next steps. Our takeaways for the day, for the session. So we'll each sort of take one, but I think for me, one thing I think you heard pretty loud and clear is just really get aligned on a shared goal, whether that's the customer focus, mission, what have you. I think is commerce next step 1. You guys want to take next step?
I'm gonna throw one in that we didn't even talk about.
Oh,
like,
great.
This is like very random, but and like off-piste, but for those skiers, but in the audience. Have fun.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, have a great time. Like, again, if everything lines up and like, bring joy to what you do. Have fun with what you do. Be a friend to your colleagues. Like, be a partner to your colleagues. Like,
love it.
This is all like basic stuff, but sometimes in the pressures of business, and we all have it, like, all have pressures in business, like you kind of forget a little bit about that. So I'm gonna throw that one in.
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
I'll throw in one we did talk about. I think get people together and just talk, right? I mean, just talk to each other.
There you
Simple.
go. I love it. Commerce next steps 3, share goals, have fun, be human, get along, right?
Love it.
Kimberly, Joe, thank you.
Thank you,
Great
Kevin.
conversation. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
guys.